Delighted to be presenting my second session for the Hubspot for Startups program today. And thanks everybody for joining in on such a cold, snowy morning. I hope you're keeping all nice and warm. As an agency owner, I have the opportunity to speak with kind of lots of different types of organizations. Some are at kind of enterprise level, some at scale up, and also many startups just like yours. And one of the things that I ask them, or one of the first things that I ask them, is about their sales. So how they're actually managing their pipeline, what a typical sales cycle looks like for them, and what their goals are for growth. But amazingly, and probably quite often, they just can't give me any accurate insights, and because they don't have the right data available. Okay. And I believe it's critical for any business to have the right systems and the right tools in place in order to get the insights that you need to make the right decisions for their sales process to be successful and also to grow effectively. So in this session, I'm going to show you a framework and some of the HubSpot tools that you can use for free to structure your sales pipeline effectively and efficiently so you can better manage your own sales pipeline. So I'm going to just dive in. Before I go much further, I'd love everybody just if they could introduce themselves in the chat pane so I know who's on the call today. That would be great.
Will I start here, Declan?
Yeah, you can either put in the chat pane or you can just talk out because it's a small group. Declan, I'd love to hear from you. Just what your name is, your company, and what you're developing or what your company is providing.
Okay, our company is MedModus, and we provide business intelligence solutions to hospitals.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
That's nice, short. I'll keep it short.
Nice and short, Declan. Thanks for that. Anya, do you want to join in there just to introduce
Yeah, sure. So my name is Anya Malloy and I'm the co-founder of Girl Cruise. So we're an online social network for women. We're currently in 50 cities worldwide. And so we haven't really sorted out a sales kind of CRM funnel yet, but it's definitely something that we want to kind of advance as we go forward.
Brilliant. That's great. Thanks, Anya. And anybody else?
Hi guys, here Michael, we're from engagement platform. So what we do, we reward people for their positive behaviors, and yeah, so that's and we're based in Dublin, Patch Labs.
Great, thanks, Michael. I think you were on the last session as well. Great to have you back.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else want to join in before we finish up? Is that everybody? Great. The reason I'm getting people to do this, and it can be uncomfortable for some people I know to introduce themselves on a call, but we're all part of the same Irish startup ecosystem, right? And I want to enable you to connect with each other so you can, promote knowledge sharing and support each other as well. So there's lots of people on the call today that have tons of experience. So I'd encourage you to share that experience and that knowledge with your peers so we can all kind of grow and learn together as well. And the last time I ran a session, we were kind of doing this in person and also online as well. And we got some great insights from other people on the call. So I'd encourage you to chime in and be active on the call as well. Okay, thanks everybody for introducing yourselves. It's really great to have such a kind of diverse group on the call today, so thanks for that. Okay, so let's go into the goals of today's session. So the goal really is to enable you to better understand best practices for setting up an inbound sales pipeline. Also know how to set up deal stages in HubSpot CRM. And ultimately hoping to save you both a bit of time and money, because if you're going to be more efficient and more productive with your sales, then you're going to be able to save both time and money as well, which is always a good thing for many startups. So the first thing is going to save you a bit of both. So I'm just suggesting that you sign up now for HubSpot's free CRM. And the reason is that I'm going to be basing some activities around it on today's session. So if you want to follow along with me and actually set up your pipeline, deal stages, add in some contacts and companies on this session with me, you can it's best to kind of sign up right now and just go to that URL. If you want to drop that URL in the chat pane, Cara, that would be great, just to make it easier for people. Alternatively, if you prefer, you can just follow along today. That's totally fine too. The exercises and activities that I'm going to be doing are valuable no matter what tools you're using, so that's totally fine. And if you have already signed up for the free tool, the free CRM, maybe you could use this time to download the app from the App Store. Actually, I have it on my phone, and I find it really handy just for like scanning business cards and getting all that data straight into the CRM, or just checking my contacts on the fly before I go into a meeting. So it's really just handy to have on your phone as well. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes to either sign up for the free CRM, or just download the app as well. So I also have another activity just to get you started with. So based on my last session, I actually did a session on the inbound sales kind of methodology and process, and we went through the inbound sales methodology. So just for fun, I said I'd do a quiz this time based on that. And if you want to log on to Twitter and go to my About Inbound Twitter account and just answer the question, what are the first and last stages of the inbound sales methodology? Is it attract and delight? Is it leads and customers? Or is it identify, advise, or strangers and customers? So I have a couple of answers already. So if you want to just cast your vote or answer the question there, that would be great. And we can see who's got the right answer. And let's go to the next one. Okay, so the inbound sales methodology, just for a quick recap, guys. So it is identify, connect, explore, and advise. So this is basically the approach, the methodology that you can use. And what we're going to be doing today is taking that theory and putting it into practice by showing you in the tools what this might look like for your sales process. So identifying active buyers, we're going to be connecting with them. We're going to be exploring their needs and their goals, and then also advising them as well. So what does this practically look like for you, and how do you go about actually putting this theory into practice? So that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. If you want more information on this, you can just check out my last session as well. And there's tons of information on this on HubSpot as well. So I'm going to just dive in now to questions to ask about your own sales pipeline. Okay, and I want you just to take the time to think about your own organization or your startup and how this also applies to you as I'm going through these questions. Okay, and for a lot of you just starting out, ask yourself, have you customized your deal stages to your own organization? So for a lot of you, when you're starting out, you're seeing what other people are doing, you're applying the same principles to your own organization. Well, as we've seen from all of the introductions, every business is different. So there are lots of different, everybody in the call is selling different products and services. There's a lot of you selling unique technology as well. So you should also have your own unique deal stages that represent your business effectively and how that process works also. The next question is, do you know how likely a deal is to close based on the stage it's in? Okay, so maybe this is something really kind of important to be able to predict what's coming in this month or this quarter. How are things actually going? What's trending over time? The next question is, do your sales reps always know when to move a deal from one stage to the next? And this is something a lot of organizations get stuck on as well. And I find that sometimes there's a lot of guesswork involved, right? And one rep is doing one thing and another rep is doing something completely different. So it's good to have kind of a clear process documented somewhere, and that you're training your new hires consistently about this process as well. And the final question is really key. So does each deal stage mean the same thing to everyone on your team? And if it doesn't, it can really lead to both inefficiencies and wasted time as well. So if you want to pop your answers in the chat pane there. Was there anybody that kind of answered no? Was there all yeses here to all of these questions? Feel free to chime in as well.
Vornine, a big one there is that a lot of these deals that are closed initially are founder-led sales. So like these guys, you know, at startups, like would usually actually have to do the selling as the first customer. So this is something that would be, you know, hard to do as founders because obviously it's your own money and it's your first customer. So it's kind of founder-led sales are what's happened as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think as well, I mean, for a lot of you, you won't know what's going to work or what's not working. You're just starting out. There's a lot of, as you mentioned, founder-led sales, and you know you're bringing that influencer into the deal so that you can move it forward quickly and efficiently. So a lot of, you know, there might be just one or two people in that process, but you're also very focused on growth. So thinking about when the, you know, your next rep is going to be hired, what's the plan for that? How are they going to approach it? And really putting a plan in place now for that future stage as well. And you can always refine this over time. The more data and the more information that you have as you're building up over time, you can refine the process and come back and update these things. But it's just good to be mindful of it now as you're getting set up.
Anya just put in the chat there that they do not have a clear pipeline set up, but they have a bit of an idea and a sort of a plan, but it's often ad hoc. Declan, deal stages are modified. Great.
That's great. Thanks for your input, guys. And that's, you know, you're not alone there. A lot of people have the same issues. So if you answered no to any of those questions, be mindful, you're actually losing money. And the reason I'm saying that is that you need to know what's in your pipeline. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on potential opportunities, which no startup can really afford to do. And if, you know, there's inconsistencies there, if there's inefficiencies there, you're really just slowing down the sales process, right? So it's really, really important. So I'm going to go into this in a little bit more detail so that you have a clear understanding of best practices so you can set up your own pipelines effectively and also put them into the tool as well. So I'm going to just start off just with the basics. What are deal stages? So again, having clarity around this is really key. And all deal stages are, and people call them different things, are just steps that represent your sales process. Okay, so they're in essence just steps that represent your sales process. What happens first, what happens after that, all the way up until somebody hopefully becomes a customer or is no longer in the sales process. And they're only created, and this is really important, when a real chance of money is due to change hands. So a lot of people get very excited, myself included, and they might create a deal too early in the process. Okay, so really think carefully. Is it too early to create a deal for this? Do I have enough information? I'm not basing it on feeling that this is going to close, but I'm basing it on real data, and I have accurate information that I can say, yep, I know their budget, I know their authority, the decision makers bought in, this is a real deal, this is a real opportunity, I'm going to create a deal in my CRM. It also helps you to kind of keep track of things and forecast how soon a transaction is going to occur as well. And basically, it just enables you to add steps or stages to your sales process. So why are these deal stages so important? Well, for a lot of startups, you're looking for funding, right? And investors want to know that you have a solid structure in place. So that you're set up, that you have, that you're organized, you have the information that you need. Also, you know, your CRM is your organization's single source of truth. So, you know, honest data is really important. The information that you put in there, you're actually going to be making decisions on in the future. So you're going to be making decisions in the future based on the information in your deal stages and your sales pipeline. And that could really mean the difference of hiring somebody this month or next month or next quarter. And the proper use of the CRM will kind of give you that number as well. And without deal stages, you really just can't do revenue forecasting effectively. So it impacts your cash flow, your hiring, your marketing activity. And also keeps you accountable as well. So you know how your reps are performing, you see the trends over time, and you just gain more insights into how your business is doing. So it's really, really important. Anybody else have any comments or thoughts on that, guys?
Declan just said, so you don't use deals to capture a prospect pre-qualification?
No, I personally, I don't. You can create just actually going to go into that now. So a contact is better for that. So you're creating a contact or a lead. So a contact is someone you have information on. So for example, you have their email address. A lead is someone who you have information about, plus they have shown some type of interest. But a deal is only created when there's a real chance of a sale. Okay, so you've done a demo, you've gone through the BANT process, which is the budget, authority, need, and timeline, and you've gone through these things. Is that clear, Declan? Okay. And you want to avoid miscommunication at any cost within any organization, because it just leads to friction, right? But as a startup, you're in a fantastic position. So if you build in clear communication as part of your culture at an early stage, you're going to be all the more successful for it. So for the purpose of this session, you know, we're just defining a contact, a lead, and a deal, but you might have other things that you want to clarify or document for your own process. A really simple, easy way to do this, to document this internally, is just to set up like a Google Doc or even a Word doc and have it on a shared platform. And just write down all of the different wording or the language that you're using and just a clear definition of it so people can easily access it, new hires can see it immediately, and everybody's just on the same page about it. Okay guys, any other questions before I kind of dive into our next activity? All good so far? Okay. So the next thing I'm going to get you to do is to just write out all the steps your reps and buyers have to take in order for a sale to close. Okay, and I have a worksheet available if you go to that bit.ly link. Cara, again, if you could put that in the chat pane for people to make it easier for them, and that will download automatically. It's just a simple Word document, nothing very fancy, but it'll help us to kind of go through all of these together. And once you type in that URL, it'll download immediately, so it should be on your screens there. And this is what it looks like. You don't have to download it. You can just use a piece of paper or a Google Doc or whatever you have handy there. We're just going to spend a couple of minutes going through what's happening on the buyer side and then also what's happening on the seller side. Okay, so thinking about from both perspectives, what is actually happening all the way through the process. So I'm going to just type in a couple of things here just to give you an example. Feel free to kind of work away on your own here as well and use this time effectively. It's really up to you what you want to do. So say at the start of my process, I might be identifying prospects. And then I might want to, I don't know, connect with prospects. And then I want to, say, find a time to meet with them. And then I'm going to, maybe I'm going to demo the product. And on the buyer side, they're going to be evaluating, right? They're going to be evaluating the product. And then after that, I'll probably do some follow-up. Lots of follow-up. And then the buyer was probably going to discuss with the decision maker, have a chat with them. And then there might be, we might want to, let's say, schedule some time in with the decision maker. And then after that, the decision maker might, you might want to kind of, DM might evaluate the situation. And then they might finally make a decision, right? And on the other side, we might be educating, the seller might be educating the DM about specific things they want to know about. And then, you know, they might have a positive decision and they might want to go ahead. So at that stage, I might send out a contract. And then on the buyer side, the buyer is receiving that contract. can't spell. And then we're finally going to get the contract signed and returned. Okay, so there's loads of steps involved here. There's kind of mini steps that I've logged in here. Don't worry about it. Just put all of the activity, all of the different steps that goes on the buyer side and all on the seller side. We're going to be refining this in a little bit, so don't worry too much. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just kind of brainstorming here of what's happening step by step on the buyer side and step by step on the seller side. It's a really good activity to put yourself in the mindset of the buyer as they're going through the process, and also to be mindful of what steps you're taking as a seller as well. So just take a few moments to go through that. Anybody have any questions so far? Everybody okay to access the workbook? So we're going to use the same workbook as well in the next activity. Just to refine the process. Okay, so we've written down all the steps from the rep side and the buyer side. And the next thing we're going to do is refine the process. Okay, we're just basically going to get rid of any unnecessary steps. Okay, so we're going to ask ourselves, is every step really, really required? Is it a nice to have? Am I elongating the sales process unnecessarily? Am I making it more complicated than needed? The next thing to think about is, are they tied to a specific action? Okay, is it tangible? Is it action-based? Also, can it be verified by a record in the CRM? Is there a way to log that activity? So if you've booked an appointment with somebody, is that logged in your CRM? If you've had a call with somebody, is that logged? If the notes from that conversation, are you recording that information? Also, are there any stages that are very similar? So you might actually have a couple of duplicate stages here, or ones that just doesn't make sense to have them in twice. So we're going to work through those as well. So I'm going to go back to my sheet now, and I'm going to work through this just as an example so you can follow along, or again, you can create your own list here and work your way through it. The first thing we're going to do, as we mentioned earlier as well, is you're only really creating deal stages when there's a real chance of a transaction or sale taking place. So I'm going to get rid of the prospecting. So because if they're at prospecting stage, there's not really a solid chance that a sale is going to take place. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm also going to get rid of connecting with prospects because they're not even at lead stage yet. So I'm going to get rid of that because there's no real chance of sale. Finding a time to meet. So if I have an automated system in place where they're clicking a link to my calendar, well, they can book time in for a demo. So I'm going to get rid of that. It's not an essential step as well. It's not an absolute essential. So I'm going to get rid of that. However, the demo stage, well, that's essential. We always want to have that in place. That's a required step. I can't skip through that. Every sales process is going to have a demo at some stage because the buyers obviously want to know what they're buying. And the follow-up step, well, I'm going to automate that. So I don't need that as a deal stage per se. Discuss with the decision maker and then schedule time with the DM. Well, discussing with the decision maker, that's not very clear and specific. So there's no action behind that. So I'm going to get rid of that as well because it's not very clear. However, the DM evaluation or educating the DM, that is action-based. So I can log a call against that. I can have notes against that. Scheduling time with the DM, again, I'm going to just get rid of that one. It's not a required step. If they click on a link, they can book in time directly. And then I'm just looking at here as well. Is there anything else that I can possibly refine? So in this stage, it's actually more important that the DM has made a decision rather than they're actually evaluating. So I'm going to actually get rid of this one. And as well, if the decision maker was on that demo call, well, we wouldn't need this section either. We'd have that earlier on in the process. So it's not always a required step. So I'm going to get rid of this as well. And I'm just, down to receiving the contract, sending the contract. And you know what? If you send out a contract, but it's not signed and returned, it's not really worth anything, okay? And if your buyer has received the contract but done nothing with it, again, it's not really valuable for us. So I'm going to get rid of those last stages as well. So I'm going to have just a very simple process here. This is just an example. Your example is going to be different, but just to kind of showcase that the simpler that your sales process is, the easier it is to communicate, the easier it is that everybody's going to be on the same page with it as well. So it could be just as simple as, you know, a demo, a make decision, signed and returned. It could be very simple like that. Okay, so go through that process and just cross out anything that's not absolutely applicable. Okay, so again, I'll just show you the things that you're going to be making this decision on. So you're going to be asking yourself, is it really required? Is it action-based? Can I verify this in the CRM? And are there any similar stages that I can just kind of get rid of any duplicates there? Any questions, guys? Does that all make sense for everybody?
Just a question about the prospecting piece.
Yeah.
And some of it might be just down to my lack of understanding of HubSpot, but
no, that's fine.
So it's important in building a pipeline. It's important to fill that pipeline. Obviously not with rubbish, but to build a list of prospects and to qualify those prospects. So if that's not going into your deal steps, where can you study things like yield? Like where I want to see, you know, of the 20 prospects we contacted in the UK, you know, in the last 2 weeks. How many of them have actually resulted in a demo? You know, if you want to understand that kind of transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So deal stages are really when there's the real opportunity and you're putting those in the pipeline, whereas they're going to be basically classified as leads or prospects in your stage. So you're going to be creating a filter. That's one way of doing it, is just filtering down by those specific contacts that you've reached. And then you can easily create a report to see, well, how many of those have actually gone to demo stage. In essence, with HubSpot and how it works is you're asking yourself, how do I group these contacts together, the people that I have in my database? What are the contact properties that are similar that I can group these by? So it could be you've stamped all of them as last contacted within the last 7 days, you've grouped them all together, and then you can see how many have actually progressed to demo stage then. Or you can pull a report on that as well. So the deal stages, they just basically come after that as well. So a little bit after that. So you, it depends on as well if how you're defining prospect. So if you're having a real conversation where you're going through the kind of needs analysis or you're scoping them and there's a real chance of them closing, you know, then they should be in a deal stage. Whereas if you're just having a very initial conversation, well then you can leave that out. Another thing you can do, and another approach I've actually taken, because I was like, I want to keep track. There's sometimes you want to focus on strong potentials as well. So you can create an earlier stage in the deal pipeline. That's something like appointment scheduled or initial inquiry. Okay, and I put in there, this is what I do, my first stage is initial inquiry. I have it at like 5%, so it's a very low probability. We're going into probability in a moment. And it's just, I track kind of real potentials there. So maybe somebody's emailed me, but the email showcases a strong intent to buy, then I might just pop them in that initial inquiry. They're not really kind of at a deal stage yet, but I just want to focus on them and make sure I'm not forgetting about them and that they're in there as well. So if that's valuable to you, you know, you can create an earlier stage. Just make sure you give it a very low probability so that you're not messing up your forecasting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah.
Borneen as well, I mean, the differentiator in deal stages also depends on the lifeline of the deals. So if you're selling like a windmill versus like an application versus a t-shirt, I mean, focusing in on, you know, the prospects tool versus leads versus like creating an opportunity looks slightly different for different companies, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I talked to some enterprise customers and they have a 2-year sales cycle. It's huge. Very complicated, very complex, lots of different stages in it. Some people have 10 or 20 stages and it's, you know, there's so many different people involved. So as I said, every organization is different. So you have to kind of really think and tweak it for yourself. I'm just giving you some kind of direction and guidance on this, but you really have to make your own decisions. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to just go in and define your sales process, okay, using that same kind of list. And we're going to just put each stage in the past tense, because it's really essential that they've done something so that you can move them to the next stage, that it's not going to happen sometime in the future. So put all of the things like demo scheduled, past tense, appointment scheduled, past tense. Make them all buyer-centric, because the buyer's actions are the ones that are actually going to close the sale. You want to make sure that you have a closed won stage, and you want to make sure you have a closed lost stage. And I'm going to go into closed won and closed lost in just a little bit. And you want to give each stage a probability score. So basically, you're asking yourself, how likely is this deal to close if it's at this stage? Okay, so if it's at demo stage, well, maybe it could be 60%. But if the decision maker is bought in, well, they could be at 70 or 80%. So you're asking yourself that. So that's the next step in the workbook. And over here, I have demo, I have DM bought in, I have contract signed and returned. So down, if I just scroll down a little bit further, this is the last page of the workbook. And you're asking yourself, is every step really required? Are they tied to a specific action? Can they be verified? Are the stages very similar? And then down below there's an example on the right hand side that you can use as well if you want to. So in the example here, I have appointment scheduled 10%. So this is not essential, but it's handy to keep track of high potential deals, as I mentioned earlier. There's needs assessed, so that's at 30%. There's product evaluated, that's at 70%. Contracts received, 90%, and then contract signed and returned, well, that's going to be your closed won stage. Okay, so in here I'm going to put in, I'm just going to scroll up, so I had demo, DM bought in, and signed and returned. So I'm going to have, because it's buyer centric, I'm going to have product evaluated, and that's going to be my demo stage. So the buyer has actually evaluated that, and I'm just going to put this in at, say, 60%. Oops. Just make that black so you can see it properly. Okay, 60%. And then I'm going to, after that, I'm going to have the DM, or the decision maker, is bought in. And I'm going to have that at, say, 70%. And then I'm going to have the contract is signed and returned. And that's going to be at 100%, or closed won. Woohoo, okay. So that's all the different steps involved there. Now, this is a very simplified version just for the purposes of this exercise, just to give you the idea. So we have it kind of buyer-centric, it's in the past tense, so signed, returned, past tense. There is a closed won stage here, but something I haven't added in yet is my closed lost. So not every deal goes through, and not every opportunity becomes a customer. So you want to put in, just mark when somebody is closed lost.
Vorneen, quick one from Declan. Looks like multitasking. So he's checked the CRM, and the lowest probability by default is 10% in the sales pipeline settings. Is that correct?
It could be 10%. Yep, that could be true. Basically, 0% is basically your closed lost, and closed won is at 100%, and then there's various probabilities in between there. I could, yeah, 10% is fine for lowest score. I think I've put in 5% before, but I could stand corrected.
And Declan, while you're in the pipeline, I would say make use as well of prospects. So you actually create a list. I saw clients recently taking the action of creating the list with most visits on pages, so they could actually monitor those people who are looking at high value pages, and also by sector, which is a good one, so they could understand, you know, what sector we're looking at the pages. So that would be something to kind of get notifications on as well.
Yeah, that's a great one. Great tip, Cara. I also
everyone.
heard somebody doing that for influencers as well. So they get notifications when somebody has a high clout score or they have a high Twitter following as well, so that they can get some kind of reach out there and some influencers kind of at launch stage. So they got quite a good reaction. So there's some influencers coming to their website and they hadn't realized it, and they just pulled up a report or a list in HubSpot, and they're able to kind of contact those people and engage with them, which is great.
Quick question, Varnin and Kara. So I can see that in terms of deal stages, pretty much it's all sales centric. But let's say that after the contract is signed and returned, we have the customer success, so product rollout phase, and it's during that phase that we actually get money from the customer. Okay. Do you keep track of those things in the same pipeline, or do you say, look, from a sales perspective, it's closed and off you go, then you need to take care of the whole customer success part somewhere else?
So great question, fantastic question. One of my clients who's actually at a scale-up stage now, what they did was they created a separate pipeline for customer success. So when somebody has closed one, so the money is exchanged, then they go into the next pipeline. And that pipeline, for example, is contract reviewed, or there might be some kind of extra documentation that needs to be discussed with the client, and then they're setting up their onboarding call, and then they're going through their login and their training and so on and so forth, and all the various different account management stages for onboarding. So they actually use the CRM for that as well, and you can do that. That's perfectly fine. And then the account manager or the customer success manager is logging notes just as a sales rep would within the CRM system. So yeah, you can use it in that way.
Okay, thank you.
No problem at all. Any other questions, guys? Cool. Actually, just while I'm on the call here as well, another use case for the CRM that I'm actually using at the moment is just to manage my client projects. So I have a lot of different ongoing projects at the moment. So I've created a separate pipeline for that. So I know what's kind of in my kind of client work pipeline, so I can manage my time more effectively. So what's in process, what's completed, what's to do, and I just move the kind of various tasks along as I'm completing them as well. So that's another kind of use case that you can have. Okay, guys. So I just want to dive in a little bit on the closed won and the closed lost, because this is really, really important, especially as you're kind of starting out and you might be prototyping different products and going through different things. And in startup land, things change all the time, right? So you want to make sure that you're keeping a record of keeping track of what's working and what's not working. So it's really important to always give a reason for why you've won a deal and why you've actually lost that deal. And you can do that just by adding a note in the HubSpot CRM. And you can report and dig into the reasons why. So you can see what's trending. If you've maybe added a new feature, are there people giving you feedback on this? And you're maybe winning more deals because of that new feature. Or the opposite, you don't have a feature and you're losing deals because of that. And you can feed that back into your product team. Also, it's good if you can to schedule a call to go through why you lost the business. Okay, you might actually learn something for the next time. You always learn from every conversation you have with somebody. Even if the sale isn't going ahead, always be friendly, keep the door open. You never know when you're going to have the opportunity to work with that individual again. They might change roles or might be in a different company. So it's always good to have that communication open with them as well. So closed won and closed lost, really important.
Another question, Vernon. So
Sure.
on the reasons why, recording why we lost a deal, it's fairly simple because we say, look, no budget or didn't see value, whatever. But in terms of why we won the business, we are having problems with that. Yeah.
You're like, great, they want my product.
Yeah, exactly. What suggestions do you have for us to dig in deeper of the reason why have they bought?
Yeah. Okay. So actually something that I have at the very end of the worksheet should help you with this. So the next piece in the worksheet is a qualifying framework, and something that I used in HubSpot when I worked in services was GPCT. I use this framework all the time. And there's also CI and BANT that they've added onto it as well.
Okay,
And there's
yeah.
more information about this sales qualification process on a HubSpot blog post, which I definitely recommend that you guys read. I might actually just pop that into the chat pane as well to make it easier for you. Basically, this enables you to know exactly what the person's goals are, what their plan is, what their challenges are, and you can map that against why they're actually buying. Okay, and you can ask them straight out. It could be one of the questions that you ask during the sales process. Well, why are you interested in this product? So if they give you a specific reason, then you can actually tailor the sales process and those conversations to their specific needs and goals. You might want to tailor your demo, for example, to their specific needs of why they're interested, and maybe even discuss, have they thought about other aspects, maybe integrations or other aspects that tie into that specific need or requirement. So this is a really good framework to have. And as you're going through the sales process, you should have a good idea as to what has sparked their interest. How does this tie in with their short, medium, long-term goals? What's the plan for implementing this product? What are challenges do they currently face in their business? And how is your product solving for those challenges? What are the timelines involved? So maybe there's a reason why they need your product to complete a certain project by the end of the year, or to hit a revenue goal by the end of the year, and then you need your product to actually hit that goal. And what are the consequences? So if they don't buy your product, what will happen in their business or their personal, professional life? Oftentimes it could be that they need this for the business to continue to be successful. They could actually lose out staff because they don't have this specific product. And then also going through their authority and so on. So that's just a framework that you can
just
use.
quick question on that.
Yeah.
In the adding value.
Yeah.
Just like let's say if we go to that deal and we want to know exactly why they like the product, and we want to, as you said, just suggest added value that we could give in terms of better features. So in some cases, I just want to know your opinion. Sometimes we just don't ask it directly and just give it to wow factor. Or is it good just to kind of ask it there, and then maybe they're not interested in the wow factor, we just want to be bang on what straight to just the key function that we're giving them.
I think if you're not tying in what their goals and needs really are, you might be showing features or benefits or showcasing value that's not applicable to them. So for example, I might not be interested in some aspects of the HubSpot CRM. For example, I might have no interest in having the mobile app, but I really want to have an online CRM that I can go in and easily manage my pipeline for. And if somebody's just showing me the mobile app, well, I'm going to lose interest. I'm going to go somewhere else. So always tie it back into the buyer's needs, their challenges, their goals, and try and kind of tailor the communications in that way. Does that help?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that. Thank you.
Great, guys. I love the questions. Really good. Feel free to chime in at any stage as well. Another thing that can be, I have to admit, this is something that I often suffer from as well. So I'm either opening a deal stage that's too early, or I'm actually having a deal that's stuck in a particular stage. So I let it linger maybe a little bit too long. So doing either of those things can have a massive impact on your sales process and your overall revenue as well. So basically, don't open it too early. Don't let it linger too long as well. If there's a reason normally why somebody is stuck at a particular stage, so ask your colleagues, dive into that. Ask for a reason why is this kind of stuck at this stage. Maybe get other people involved at that stage to move it along. And think about, be honest with yourself. Is the deal really a deal if it's been stuck at this stage for 3 or 4 months? Maybe we should move it to close lost and concentrate on kind of more active buyers, on better prospects. And also it's good to measure how long it takes to get from one stage to the next. When you're starting out, you probably won't notice this, but over time you're going to get trends and you're going to get more data to give you more insights as well. So you have an idea of, well, actually this is dragging on too long. It's 20% over the average time it takes to get from point A to point B in my pipeline. So, that's not really great. Also, it's good to be able to measure, how much MRR, your monthly recurring revenue, that you're going to be getting. So if you know that a deal is going to likely close within a 30-day framework, then you can kind of start to predict and forecast effectively on your revenue as well.
So, Vernon, on that
yeah.
one, it's quite interesting, right? Because in our, I think in our experience, sometimes we cannot get answers from our customers, okay, from our leads, and that's one of the reasons that deals linger.
Mm-hmm.
What do you suggest? You say that after X weeks without response, close lost, off you go?
I would try and ascertain a certain number of attempts that you're contacting that person. So, 3 to 5 attempts. If they're not picking up the phone, if they're not communicating via email, are you wasting your time after that point to continue to try and engage with them when they've probably gone to another competitor? You might be losing momentum at that stage as well. So, I mean, you probably want to give it a certain amount of tries, definitely be thorough with your sales process. But if you're not getting the response, then, maybe add them into a sequence or an automated email sequence and just leave it be, for the moment. You can maybe follow up with them with re-engagement campaigns or other ways further down the line. But, you don't want to be kind of wasting time on time wasters, basically.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, if you're not getting the right information, I mean, is it a case that you're not getting the right information on calls or when they're filling out forms, or is that a case as well?
Yeah, so I think I remember 1 or 2 situations where pretty much we went through the whole sales process, done a product demo, and then we always schedule a call to discuss the proposal and try to close it. And there are situations where this follow-up call keeps getting rescheduled. Oh, it's not the right time. Let's do it later. So it looks like a no, but we don't get a frankly, a no, it's not for me now. So it kind of will linger the deal, will linger the process. But yeah, maybe just a no, and
sure.
we move on.
Personally, I deal with this in 2 ways, and I'd love to hear what other people are doing as well. So I would say that one thing that I do is if there's just radio silence, I just send one final email and just say, at this stage, I take it you don't want to go ahead. I just wanted to confirm with you so I can remove your details from my records and my system, so I won't bother you anymore at this stage. And some people react to that and they're like, oh, hey, actually, no, I really do. I am interested. I'm just being super busy at the moment. So that's one way to kind of deal with it. Another way is also trying to get really clear tie downs of next steps at your previous call. So if you're at demo stage, when are you going to have that next call? Who's going to be on that next call? If they're getting their senior manager on that next call, there's more likely chance that they're going to turn up for that next call. If they're doing any kind of activity, they're going to be more bought in, more likely to turn up for that next call. So maybe give them little tasks or activities to do between now and that next call. Keep them engaged, keep them active, keep them busy, so they have you top of mind through that next time frame as well. And it's also okay to kind of say, hey, like, we had this great conversation last week, what's changed in the last 7 days that now you're, this next call is not a priority for you? I'm just really confused. Can you clarify what's happening? Maybe I'd be able to help you. Just be clear with your communications and be honest and transparent. Anybody else have any suggestions, guys? Cara, anything else you'd like to add to that could help the others?
Yeah, I mean, well, what I've done there is just I've added an email that we use in HubSpot for startups, which is basically, just saying, maybe you're not a good fit right now, we'll reach back out in the future. Or also if it's stuck in a deal stage for too long, we'll trigger notifications based off like whether we put them into incorrect fit or whether we put them into active. So like Vorneen said, like, don't be afraid to take the deal off the table. And in negotiations, what a lot of the time would be that give get. A lot of our sales reps talk about that. So like Vorneen says, look, if I'm going to schedule a demo, I want the decision maker on the call. So I'm going to provide you a high value demo, but I want the person who makes the decisions on the call. Are you that person who signed the contract? So Steve Vaughan, one of our sales reps, speaks a lot about that give get, and I'm just going to put in his list, so you have it in terms of what you can give in order to receive, which is useful for kind of making sure the processes move along fast.
Cool. Yeah, that's some really solid advice there, Cara. Thank you. What we're going to do now, just for the last few minutes, is just really quickly to just dive into the CRM. And I'm going to kind of put all the activities that we've just done into the tool itself, so you have a clear kind of follow through of how that actually works. So for those of you who are in the system already or have just signed up, just get that up, and you can either follow along with me and create your own deals and your own pipeline, or you can just watch what I'm doing. It's totally up to you what you prefer as well. So I'm just going to log in now for a second. So we're going to go through a couple of things here. So the first thing is just a quick overview of the the deals section here. So what you're looking at is the CRM, and I've just clicked on the deal stage from the overview screen. Okay, so from the dashboard, I've just clicked on deals in the top navigation, and this is what you see. Now, I have, as I mentioned, 3 different pipelines that I've created. One is for Hubspot for startups, which is great. I also have my own sales pipeline, and then I have a client work pipeline as well, just for managing different projects as I'm going through. So what you're looking at now is the Hubspot for startups, just kind of demo draft pipeline. If you've just started with the HubSpot CRM, there's probably some default stages in there that have automatically populated. So you might see things like appointment scheduled, qualified to buy, presentation scheduled, DM bought in, contract sent, won and lost as well. So there might be different things that you see here. I've just added in 2 just simple ones in here. If what also you're going to see is a customize button. So I'm going to get you to click on the customize button, and we're going to just edit some of the deal stages, because in the process that I mapped out on my Word document worksheet, there was a couple of more stages. I just want to make sure I'm including those as well as the closed won and the closed lost stages. Okay, so this is my HubSpot for startups pipeline. This is my first one, which is appointment scheduled. I've given that a win probability of 10%. So then I'm going to go into product, and needs evaluated. And I'm going to give that, say, 60%. I'm going to have DM bought in, and that's going to be 70%. And then I'm going to have a contract signed and received. I'm just kind of making up a couple of these now, and I'm going to put that as 1. So closed won is your 100%. They've given you money, they've signed the contract, and the deal is closed. I'm also going to add in another stage, which is our final stage, and that's closed lost, and I'm going to put that in as lost here. Okay, now there's a couple of things as I'm hovering over here. You'll notice that I can easily delete a stage if I wanted to. So if I made a mistake or you're changing your process, it's okay. You can just delete that stage. And also you'll see this edit properties stage here on the right hand side. So with any CRM, it's your kind of single source of truth, right? And the information that you put in there, you're going to be basing future decisions on. So the information should be as honest as possible. It should be really accurate as well. And oftentimes what I see is that sales reps or people are just arbitrarily kind of dragging one deal from one stage to the next. So they're just dragging it along. They're not updating any information or any extra data in there. So it's not up to date. So what you can do to control that a little bit is to make sure that you have specific information at specific stages. So for example, at DM bought in stage, I'm going to edit the properties. I'm going to say that, say the deal description is a bit of information. So they can't progress the deal until they have this bit of information completed. So it's a really handy way to make sure that you're getting the right information from your reps as well. So I'm going to save this. And I'm also going to make sure that I save all of my pipeline deal stages here. So I'm going to click on save. Updated successfully. And I'm just going to click on deals again. So now what you should see is a lot more of the deal stages that I have. So instead of just the 2 deal stages, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I scroll across here, I have close lost as well. Okay, so I have a lot more deal stages in here. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a deal just so you have an idea of what this looks like. And I'm going to put in HubSpot for startups consulting package. I'm going to put it in the pipeline HubSpot for startups. I'm going to put it in the deal stage appointment scheduled just for the moment. And I'm going to put it in as, say, 200 for the moment for the amount. My estimated close date is going to be the 31st of March. The HubSpot owner, that's basically the sales rep who's dealing with this or who's assigned to this specific deal. So that's going to be me in this case. The deal type, you can either have this as new or existing. So I'm going to specify this as new business that's coming in. I'm going to skip the company for the moment, and I'm actually going to add Cara as my contact in here. So Cara is already in my system, and I'm going to select Cara as my contact for this deal. Thanks, Cara. And finally, I'm going to click on Create. So this is what your deal looks like. Okay, so it's on the left-hand side here, you'll see this is all the bits of information that I've put in about this specific deal. And on the right-hand side, you'll see all of the different activities that have taken place. So if I've logged any emails or calls with Cara, added any notes in here, or scheduled any meetings about this deal, it's going to all appear on the right-hand side. You also see that Cara is now tagged to this deal here. You can add any attachments, PDFs, brochures, etc. About this deal in here. And one thing I haven't done yet is actually add the company. So I'm going to add a company in here, and I'm going to put in HubSpot. And there's no HubSpot actually not in my CRM at the moment. It's not, information isn't in there. So I'm going to create a company, and I'm going to put in hubspot.com, and magically all the information popped in about that domain. And then I'm going to click on create company. Perfect. And now that company is also associated with this specific deal. So the deals kind of live on their own, and then you add a contact and you add a company to that specific deal. So all the information is connected. And automatically you'll see lots of extra information is populated here. The social information, description of that company, revenue, employees, all of that is automatically populated in the company information. Okay, and then we go back to deals again and say I'm progressing that deal a little bit further. And I go from this stage over to product and needs evaluated, and that's fine. But then when I'm at the DM bought in stage, because I've set deal description as a required field, I have to fill it in before moving it to that stage. So I can say spoke to DM and they have emailed confirmation. And I'm going to click on save. And perfect, I have that information and that is recorded against that specific deal. And now they're at that stage and DM bought in. And the final thing I'm just going to show you, that was a very quick overview. You could have used that time as well just to set the deals and the contacts and the companies up yourself. But one final thing I just want to show you very quickly is how to create a report. So if just under the options down arrow here, you can click on create report. And if you click on create report, this pops up here. Now this is including all of the different deals that I have in all my different pipelines. So I'm going to add a filter. I'm going to filter this by pipeline. And I'm going to filter it by the HubSpot for Startups pipeline. So I just want information about the HubSpot for Startups pipeline, apply filter, and I have one deal in there, and that's the deal I'm working with Cara. And you can also add various different metrics if you want to. So you can dig into the closed won or lost reasons, for example, deal stages, and analytics information as well. So there's a lot more you can report on, but that's just a very specific report, very simple one with the amount of count of deals that are available. So you can mess around with other bits of information that might be more valuable to you, such as the amount, for example. And you'll see that in there as well. I know I went through that quite quickly, guys, but it's just to give you a very brief kind of overview of what you can do. And I was just conscious of putting the theory into practice so you can see what that looks like. I see, Cara, you put in €200 in the chat pane there. Any questions on any of that? Do you want me to go through anything again?
Could you just show if you were to set it up for, you mentioned earlier that you could set it up for influencers or something like that.
Yeah.
Could you just show that very briefly if you had the time?
Sure, of course. So what I'm going to do is, I wonder if I can, yeah, I can do it from this stage actually. So you can filter by two things. So you can have a look at the analytics history is bits of information from where you've acquired this contact record. So you can see if it's come from social media and different things like that. The other thing you can do is on the marketing side, you can go into, or actually, let me just see if you can do this on the contacts here and filter by clout. Yeah, so you can filter by clout score, and you can say is equal to, say, or is greater than, say, 80. Apply filter, and then I've no influencers in my database. This is terrible. And then I can see Twitter followers is maybe 1,000 or something like that. So you can apply the filter there. So you can add various different ones if you want to. Obviously, I don't have any influencers to show you, but if they were here, they would appear in this way. So you're going to go for clout score and number of Twitter followers is above a certain amount, for example. The clout score is actually is a better kind of metric to use because it's not just based on one social media stream. It's also including like Instagram and Facebook and all sorts of different other social streams as well. So that's a way of kind of just narrowing or filtering down the contacts in your database by specific thing and grouping them together. And then once you have that group in place, you can report on it, you can contact them, you can communicate with them more easily. Does that help?
Great, thanks. Yeah.
Ronnie, just a quick question on that section that we marked as required.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Remember that? Yeah. So let's say in this section where we type in the description, but we want someone else to pick up that process. Is this possible? Is it possible here?
You can trigger a notification, and you can also change the kind of the owner of that record. So there's a bit of automation that's involved in that, but that's something you can do. So for example, you could, when somebody moves to this stage, then you can trigger an email notification to somebody else to say, hey, this person is at this stage, here are all their details, go ahead and make this action or make a call or whatever it might be.
Brilliant.
So you might have, for example, use case for that could be that you have a pipeline for your BDRs or SDRs, the business development reps or sales development reps, and they might be kind of prospecting and working the deal to a certain stage, and then they pass it over to the more senior sales reps, and then you want to notify them that this is, demo is scheduled, for example, or something like that.
That's exactly it. Cool.
Any other questions, guys? Either about the process, best practice, or anything about the CRM that you'd like to know that I can help you with today, or myself or Cara?
Just put those emails in the chat there. They're like 5 automated emails you can set up for yourself. That's quite useful in terms of kind of saving them time as well and making sure the information goes to the right person.
I can barely hear you there, Cara. I think you just put something in the chat pane there. Oh, the notification emails you can automate. Super.
Just on the best practice piece. So we reached out to a couple of companies before and we ended up not using them, which was fine. These things happen. So initially they were sending kind of follow-up emails and then they stopped doing that. And then suddenly I was on a mailing list that I hadn't subscribed to. I don't know, like, is that a good thing to do? Is that legal? I don't know. I felt like it was a bit odd because I'd never really signed up for my email to be used in that way, but I figured it was an automated system because I got 3 emails and then suddenly I was getting their weekly newsletter.
Okay, there's different types of emails. So if there's a transaction that's taken place, or it depends on what kind of relationship that you have with that organization. So if you're a customer, different rules apply. If you have a transactional email, so if you purchase something and you need to get information about that product or service, like if you booked a flight or something like that, there's certain different rules that apply. If you're continuing to get information from them and you haven't kind of bought in to receive that information, or you haven't signed up for it, that's not really great practice in place. If you're not expecting it and if you're not wanting it, it's not a good practice, but you can always unsubscribe as well, or you should be able to unsubscribe from any emails you want to. Basically with email, if you're bothering somebody too much, I know if I get bothered by email, the number one thing I do is I unsubscribe, so you've lost me then. You're not going to communicate with me again. And in Hubspot, if you unsubscribe, you're automatically not going to be able to send those emails to that person again. So they're going to be automatically removed from your mailing lists. So it's kind of automated process for that. And yes, there are, if somebody, for example, with the email sequences, if you're using that as part of your sales process for automating follow-up, that's a really good point. Once somebody replies, that sequence will stop, okay? And you don't want that sequence to go on forever. So you might give it 2 or 3 tries and then end that sequence. And you want to also ask, just openly ask them, are you still interested in these emails? If not, let us know. So it's always good to ask the people that are receiving the emails for feedback as well. Does that help, Anya?
That's great. Thanks, Emil.
Cool. Any other questions, guys, just before we finish up? Cool. So I don't see anything in there on the chat pane there for questions. After today's session, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to compile all of the slides, the workbooks, all the resources, and it's going to be made available in this link here, so aboutinbound.com/HFS. My previous information on the building a sales team and a sales process slides are there already. So after this session, I'm just going to add to that with today's slides and workbooks and resources as well. I am providing a Hubspot for Startups onboarding package as well. So if anybody needs help and support with getting their Hubspot set up correctly, or if they need additional information to do that, just let me know. There's no problem at all. Or if you just have any questions, feel free to contact me. There's no problem with that whatsoever. I'd love to help you guys and support you guys as well. Keep in contact as well. I'm also going to be sharing out some additional resources on my Twitter account later on, so keep your eyes peeled for that. It's been a pleasure kind of going through everything today. You've participated really well, have got some fantastic questions, and I hope that you did learn a lot as well. So thanks, guys.